This has been a message from the U.S. Department of Transportation.
Howdy, folks. RL here to invite you to Dairy Queen for a great new meal. Dairy Queen's now serving 3 different $5 meals. Hot dogs with chili, cheese, slaw, whatever. Quarter pound with cheese, loaded up any way you like it. Solid filet chicken tenders. And each meal comes with fries, a drink, and a sundae for only $5. You got that right. Nobody beats that deal. A great value and a great meal. So come on down to Dairy Queen at Silver Springs, where they always treat you like kings and queens.
All right, thank you very much. It's 25 minutes before 9 o'clock. We will do Ocala Open. What is it called again? Ocala. What do we call it?
Debate.
Open for debate. Yeah, I forgot what we called the show. We'll do that in just a little bit. First, I want to speak real quickly to George Edwards. This is the gentleman who made everybody happy yesterday with the news that the God and Country Day was coming back. It was going to be on next Thursday. He is the president of Ocala JCs. He's also a sergeant at the
Florida Department of Corrections.
Wow, good for him. Before we say anything, a big thank you to Mr. Edwards, Sergeant Edwards, not just for bringing the event back, but for 44 years of this. I mean, This is something we have taken for granted. We have just been spoiled by the JCs. They've always treated us to this, and so it was such a disappointment when we first heard the news, and then the community jumped on board and said, you know what? We want to help out because this group has helped us out so much over the years. Mr. George Edwards, Sergeant George Edwards, good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for having me on the show this morning.
Well, thank you. And my sincerest thank you for these years that you guys have always done this, not just this, but the haunted house and the many things you do for the people, the things we don't even know about that you guys do. So thank you for that.
Right, absolutely. You're very welcome.
Right now, since I mean, this was a one-day turnaround. I mean, one day there was news that it was that the God and Country Day was canceled, and then the next day, because of the outcry and the support, it's back on, and so that's awesome. I just can't tell you how the feedback we've had from just the listenership of this station alone.
Yeah, it's truly incredible. It really goes to show you how great of a community we reside in. Within, I would say, less than 24 hours, my phone was blowing up with phone calls, citizens and business leaders in the community who were just, desperate to help us out and make this event, occur this year. So
yeah. We were talking about the fact that it's not just Ocala either. This is a signature event for the whole region. Robin pointed out that a lot of people have their Independence Day celebration on the 3rd because they make plans to come here on the 4th.
Right.
Right.
So, and because of God and Country Day. So anyway, right now, so there's another task at hand, and it's volunteers, correct?
That's absolutely correct, yes.
What do you need?
We're looking for anyone who wants to come out the 3rd, kind of help with setup and cleanup, getting the grounds prepared for the actual God and Country Day event. And then, of course, on the 4th of July, the event starts around 1 p.m., so we're looking for volunteers to come out around noon and help with parking and things of that nature. Obviously, there's going to be some cleanup, and we'll need to handle, garbage and things of that nature. So we'll need about 30 to 40 volunteers. So anyone who's willing to come out and help with that, we'd be extremely fortunate for.
Okay, and maybe we can make this announcement on a really recorded, on a recording and play it throughout the day. Do they call us? Is there a phone number that we can mention?
I actually do not have a number that they can contact, but I do have an email if they'd like to send me an email.
Okay.
I try my best to respond to all the emails that we receive.
Hey, what is the email?
The email is president@JCI.Ocala.org, and that's my direct email.
Okay. Let me just read it back to you so I got it right. President@JCI.Ocala.org.
That's correct.
Correct. Okay. Well, I mean, you must have been brokenhearted when you had to break the news that this might be, that it was canceled at that point.
Very much. It was very disheartening for me, especially as the president of the organization. When you have an event that's run for nearly 44 years in a community, and you have to break the news that it's not going to happen, it's not very easy to do, and it's not something you want to do. So, and I got to send out a huge thank you to Mr. Michael Peters of the community. He's actually the former owner of the Ocala Race. He stepped up to the plate, reached out to me, Star Banner. Rick Allen over there at Star Banner contacted me yesterday and said, look, Mr. Peters wants to help any way that he can. Got in contact with him, he set us up with an insurance agent, and he really played a vital role in making the success of the 44th annual God and Country Day.
Oh, that's awesome.
In addition, he made a donation. Ride Now Motorsports and also Wells Fargo Bank have all stepped up to the plate and made donations and have offered to assist in any way. So we just want to, on behalf of the Ocala Junior Chamber, we want to thank all of them.
Wow.
And with everything you do, it is very, very humbling of you, because the Ocala JCs have never relied on tax dollars or anything like that. Everything has been self-contained for all of the good works that you have done for our community.
Right.
Well, and again, just to reestablish that, we are definitely appreciating what you have done all these years. The fact that you were able to revive it, and Mr. Peters and the community at large for stepping up to the plate, and you maybe it was a kind of a serendipitous thing, kind of a blessing in disguise. Maybe you didn't realize how much we loved it. So,
absolutely.
I mean,
yeah, it's.
I mean, we love it, but we take it for granted, so.
Yeah, but we say that, I always like to say that everything happens for a reason, and you never know what the future may hold. And this might have been a great thing. Across the country, service organizations are suffering from a decline in membership and volunteers. And who knows, this have been a break to the public that, hey, maybe it's time to get together as a community and start working on projects like this again. So, it's great for us.
Okay. And since you had began all those years ago, I know I had known some people in the JCs. Was it was just an organization for men, and then the women got involved?
That's right. In 1984, the United States JCs changed their policies to allow women to become involved with the junior chamber.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you again for being on the air with us today. And for the listeners, if you can help out, they need help on the 3rd as well as on the 4th.
That's right.
Helping set up and helping to park cars and to be part of that whole event. And, hey, you'll be part of a historic event. This is historical, this one. Mm-hmm. George, thank you for what you've done all these years. Thank the rest of the JCs on our behalf. We're behind you 100%, and anything we can do to help, please always remember the media in this town is a great tool, not just us, but the rest of the media as well.
Absolutely, and thank you very much. We do appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. We will take a little break, and we'll be right back with Open for Debate.
Legally Yours, brought to you by Fuller & Fuller Attorneys at Law. On the air every Wednesday morning at 10:30 a.m. with John Fuller, a board-certified civil trial lawyer for over 25 years. John welcomes your questions, from business to complex family matters to legal disputes. So tune in every Wednesday morning at 10:30 a.m. for Legally Yours with John Fuller, right here on WOCA 1370 AM and 96.3 FM, The Source.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala.
All right, 15 minutes before 9 o'clock. I hope you forgive me for taking time out of our Open for Debate segment to speak to Mr. Edwards there. I think Pete's waiting patiently, I hope.
Yes.
All right. What I wanted to talk about today, and I will be really brief because we've kind of used up the time I normally use for my opening. Yesterday, as you probably already know, there was a decision made in the Supreme Court, and it affects Florida somewhat. I looked at the map of the sections that were covered, the jurisdictions that were covered by the Voting Rights Act, which was signed, 1964, I think it was? Mm-hmm. It was when Lyndon Johnson was the president, right? I don't know if I have that exactly right, but... let's see, Arizona, all of Arizona, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, almost all of Virginia, a large part of North Carolina, little portions of New York City even, little portions of, looks like New Hampshire, some counties here in Florida, but not the whole state. They were all affected by the Voting Rights Act. And in a nutshell, the Voting Rights Act was a federal decision to be Big Brother, as you might say, over the voting practices of the areas that seemed to be displaying prejudicial behavior. I'm trying to think of a way to do this and not be too long-winded in their areas. So yesterday, the Supreme Court had a case to look at. It was called Shelby County versus Holder. It revolves around Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act, which establishes a coverage formula to determine which states and local governments fall under Section 5 and therefore need to get approval before changing their voting laws. The governor of the state of Florida is happy with the decision of the Supreme Court. The ACLU, not happy. I am so sorry. I don't have really enough time to explain it. I'm hoping you already know this story. So without saying any more, that's what we're debating today. And really, we're not trying to debate it so that we can make a decision and write a letter to the Supreme Court, because obviously they've already made their decision. The debate that I thought would be more practical would be, what can Florida do now, or does Florida need to do nothing? Are we okay? I mean, have we grown up? Have we become more civil with each other, or do we still have reason to be guarded when it comes to the temptation to establish lines that would imply some kind of a prejudice? All right, and I know I'm stumbling all over this because I'm trying to do it really, really quickly. And Pete, I know you've been waiting patiently. Good morning, Pete. Thank you for being there. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Pete didn't stick around. Okay, all right. Pete did not stick around. All right, well, the phone lines are open if you want to call in and be part of this. The number is the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline, 622-9622.
And this is a huge issue because every time the Supreme Court does something, it's not, conducive to what other people believe and want for their own particular state or their own particular community.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I mean,
so they have
a lot of people
opinions.
A lot of people say, look, this is something from 50 years ago, right?
Yeah.
The Chief Justice Roberts opened his opinion by stating that the Voting Rights Act of 1965, I guess I had the date wrong, employed extraordinary measures to address an extraordinary problem. The argument was that we are not there anymore. We're not where we were in 1965. The ACLU obviously disagrees with that.
Right, exactly.
The Supreme Court says, you know what, we've had them on probation more or less for all this time, meaning those districts and those states, and they will lift it and now leave it up to the states themselves to regulate that. Mm-hmm. And good morning, you are on the air. Thank you for calling.
Hello?
Am I doing something wrong here?
I don't know. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello, there we go.
Oh, you got me?
Gotcha.
There we go.
Okay, all right.
I don't know what I did wrong there. Okay, thank you. Lenny, how you doing?
Oh, pretty good. How are you guys?
Pretty good.
Good to hear you.
Is your electricity on?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Boy, I tell you, yesterday, though, it sounded like, man, almost like a hurricane out there.
Yeah, it sure did.
5 blocks down from me, tree fell in somebody's house.
Oh, no.
Yeah. In regards to the Supreme Court action relative to the Voting Rights Act, what they did half of it, really. They did Section 4, left Section 5. Basically, now, the state of Florida, what happens, that act, it didn't cover the entire state anyway. It only covered 5 counties in the state of Florida.
Right.
So it didn't have that much impact on the state of Florida anyway. What people fail to see is that most of the people that have any of the states that asked, I think it may have only been like one since they had it, that asked for relief received it. So what happened is a lot of the states and some of the counties in some of the states were still under the mandate, mainly because they didn't ask to be relieved from the mandate. Now, what's going to happen is, since Section 5 is still intact, Congress now is charged with the responsibility of going back and doing legislation that will clean this up for all the states. So it's not really a done deal in terms of the only thing is the states no longer have to go through the Justice Department to ask to change their voting precincts and districts and all that type of stuff. So that's the only real change. I personally have mixed emotions about it. I mean, obviously, if there's what'll probably happen is there's going to be more lawsuits, and that for those people that are not being fair in terms of their voting, the way they handle their voting rights, so that it will cover everybody in all of the various states. I think that's going to be the only situation, because I don't think Congress, especially with the House, they're not going to come up with any legislation this year. They can't even come up with a budget now. So they're certainly not going to agree on this. But the funniest thing about it, every time it came up before the Senate and the House, they overwhelmingly voted to continue with the status quo as the way it was. So that's kind of interesting, but I don't think that'll happen again. You guys have a good day.
Thank you. Appreciate that, and I appreciate your opinion. Good morning. You're next.
Good morning, Larry Robin.
Hi, Sonny.
To a certain extent, I definitely agree with Lenny. However, I do believe all this going back and forth is actually continuation of the erosion of states' rights. And we can see this with the latest fiasco going on now between the Republicans and Democrats as far as immigration. What immigration? We've been invaded. And
don't you think? Okay, now
again.
But let me ask you something. So don't you think that yesterday's decision gives back, at least in this one issue, it gives back states' rights to those states that were
again? Read the fine print in all of it.
Well, okay. What did I not understand?
Yeah.
Well, it's just too much going on in there that involving the federal government, no matter what it is, whether they're saying, yeah, we got to protect state rights or not. It's the federal government with the last word.
Well,
not the state.
Okay, but and there's an interesting irony in what you're saying is that the states' rights kind of return to the states when it comes to drawing the lines for their political jurisdictions.
Yeah, but it's states' rights as long as it pleases the people in the government.
Okay, but as far as the gun ownership rights, or the immigration, let's stick to that one, I guess. The immigration rights, if you look at Arizona's situation, the federal government trumps the state there, even though the state was supporting the whole immigration idea. In other words, it sounds like it's contradictory. The Supreme Court gives the state right back to the state when it comes to drawing lines, but kind of trumps the state's rights when it comes to immigration reform.
Whatever it is, it still basically comes down to states' rights as long as it's okay with the federal government. And the Supreme Court ought to just stick with the laws and forget their own bending of the law. Either interpret it or kick it back to the state or lower courts like they've done on other decisions.
All right. Thank you, Sonny. Appreciate that.
Have a good day.
Hey, you too. Let's go to the next call. Yeah, I think, again, we're kind of getting sucked into the debate that the Supreme Court was in, and we actually did this one a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So now, and it's okay to do that, but now the debate would be more, now that the government more or less is not breathing down the states' necks on this issue. I know they're still breathing down on the immigration issue, so it's kind of confusing. But if you're only talking about drawing lines for voting districts, then that right was given back to the states with yesterday's decision, the way I read it.
Yeah.
Okay, so and if that's the case, that's why the governor of Florida, Governor Scott, was happy with the decision. It's also why the ACLU is not happy, because they feel like those people who are responsible for that line drawing will once again misuse their authority.
Right, exactly.
Okay. That's how I understand it. So the question would be, or the debate would be now, since the Supreme Court made that decision, what should we do in Tallahassee to make sure nobody does abuse that authority?
Yeah.
Since the federal government is no longer Big Brother in this issue. I think that's how it is. Good morning. You're next.
Good morning, Larry and Robin. How
Yeah.
are you guys?
Hi, Mark.
Larry, I think your interpretation up to a certain point is right, and I appreciate Lenny clearing things up. I think it does give authority back to states, and it's not the only thing that's been dealt with in the Supreme Court recently that attempts to. What I think really what's occurring is if there is a profile that is inappropriate, it allows. It actually lessens the ability for defense claimants to be made. In other words, if there's an improper trend or a vote theft, it will make it harder for the victims, regardless who they may be. Though traditionally, if you look at our American history,
okay, harder because you can no longer go to daddy, which is the federal government. You have to go to the state.
Right.
Well, right, and then if the state is not, and then what it does is it blocks the state from the authority of the federal government. But I would remind, I don't think I need to remind yourself though that Dwight David Eisenhower had to use the U.S. Army to allow some people to attend college once in Arkansas, and then I think Bobby Kennedy had to authorize the Army to be able to take action. So I mean, we have a history in our nation, and this is actually all a legacy of it. Being from Illinois, moving to Florida, they make you declare your party affiliation when you vote, which is really historically a legacy item of slavery, because in Illinois, who you register with is your own private business, which they want to know up front. And why would anybody want to know up front what may be used against you? So and that's what the Jim Crow laws were all about. So unfortunately. I thought the Voting Rights Act of 1965 should have been made a permanent authorized situation. But in any case, I think you are right on your interpretation. It does give the rights back to the state. Could I just make a quick point about the Snowden case, Larry?
Sure.
I would remind the listeners, I don't think that you don't know this, but this Snowden worked for a private company, ultimately, Booz Allen Hamilton. And I would ask the listeners, do they realize who owns the Booz Allen Hamilton investment spy firm? It's none other than the Carlyle Investment Group. And Larry, do you know who owns the Carlyle Group?
Is it the Koch brothers?
No, actually, but they're friends with the Koch brothers.
I would have guessed that too.
It just seemed like it. It seemed like it.
Well, actually, and it's not George Soros for the right-wing element out there, but no, it's actually the Bush family. But that's not just the Bushes own the Carlyle Group, but Frank Carlucci and Margaret Thatcher before she passed away, and John Majors.
I love this topic. Can you bring it up tomorrow? Would you?
Sure.
Okay, yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mark. And the only thing about if the Voting Rights Act had stayed in place, the one thing that was unfair about it, but there was reason for it to be unfair, is that it really didn't mention all the states. It only mentioned the ones that had already displayed improper behavior, I guess you would say, and some kind of evidence that they were drawing lines that were discriminating to the people who should be represented more fairly.
Right.
And we do, as Lenny pointed out, we've got a few counties in the Southwest. It looks like Hillsborough is one of them. I'm looking at a small map. I can't really figure out which ones. Southwest Florida and pretty much all the rest of the South up until North Carolina. Good morning. You're on the air.
Once again, Larry, let me point out one very important thing. It does not totally say to the states what you got to realize. There's two components of the Voting Rights Act: Section 4, Section 5. It dealt with Section 4. The meat of it is actually Section 5. And also, you got to realize that we also have Amendment 15, which also covers Voter Rights Act. So those are still intact.
Right. No.
What this basically says is you don't have to go to the Justice Department again, to ask permission. It relieves all of that. But it still keeps in place Section 5, which is music. Now, basically, what Section 5, what it basically boils down to is the federal government still has the authority, Congress has the authority to go in and clean it up. They can come back and amend this and say, okay, this is what we want to do mandatory manner for all of the states. That's what they can do. The only difference is now is that if you have problems in terms of the precincts and the way the maps are drawn and all that stuff, you have to do a direct suit. You can't go to the Justice Department. Well, you can go to the Justice Department, but it has to be direct. The Justice Department had the big hammer before this.
Yeah, you said it very well. And I did understand that. I probably just didn't articulate it as well as you. All right, thank you. I appreciate that, Lenny.
Okay, have a good one.
And just real quickly, as a way to debate it and make debate a practical thing, like Lenny's pointing out, it's no longer something you take to the Justice Department, but you would take it to Tallahassee with their Justice Department, more or less. And the governor says, trust me on this one, so I guess we have to trust him, but don't trust anybody. And whether you like him or not, never trust anybody. Make sure you write them letters. Make sure you let them know how you feel, especially if you smell something fishy. That's all I want to say. We'll be right back.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala. ABC News Now. I'm Karen Chase. New York has become the largest city in the nation to require bosses to give workers 5 paid sick days. Proponents say people shouldn't have to choose between fiscal and physical health. His daughter says Nelson Mandela's condition is very critical, but he's still opening his eyes, and his family will live with hope until the end. She also appealed for privacy, saying just because he's a public figure doesn't mean his dignity shouldn't be respected. Speaking in Senegal, President Obama called the Supreme Court rulings on gay marriage a victory not just for gays, but for democracy. Opponents call it an overreach by the court. Paula Deen has been fired by the Food Channel and dropped by endorsers, but not everyone is backing off at high speed. Her cookbook sales have soared 1,000%, and civil rights leader Jesse Jackson says he wants to help her change. Michael Jackson's oldest son, Prince Michael, testified his father often came home from concert rehearsals crying and complaining that tour organizers were killing him. His testimony came in the wrongful death lawsuit against Jackson's promoters. This is ABC News.
At Advance Auto Parts, getting the right oil and saving some cold, hard cash is your Advance advantage. Right now, a 5+ quarts jug of Castrol GTX conventional motor oil and a filter are just $19.99. Or, if your car is over 75,000 miles, upgrade to Castrol GTX high mileage oil for just $3 more to help extend engine life. The right oil to make your car hum, the right price to make you whistle a happy song. Only at Advance Auto Parts. See store for details.
Membership helps Strictly Bicycles keep business tuned.
Building a bike is like building a small business. With a bike, it's about weight. In a business, it's cutting costs.
The Plum Card from American Express Open offers an early pay discount or extra time to pay your bill with no interest.
It helps with my cash flow and lets me reinvest so I can put my money to work.
Find out more at open.com.
I'm Nelson Gutierrez, and I'm a member of making my money work as hard as I do.
This is what membership is. This is what membership does.
Terms and conditions apply. The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Life jackets save lives. We're in Florida. A mix of sun and clouds today with a couple of thunderstorms around, particularly during the afternoon hours, the high 88 to 92. There'll be a shower and thunderstorm around early tonight, partly cloudy later tonight, though 72 to 76. For tomorrow and Saturday, times of clouds and sun with a thunderstorm or two around each day, mainly during the afternoon hours, high both days 88 to 92. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
What you may have missed on the John Tesh Radio Show.
Eat fresh and local and grow or gather what you can. Planting and harvesting a garden is good exercise. It also gets you out in the sun, which lowers rates of depression. The children who learn to swim at an early age hit certain physical and developmental milestones faster than kids who learned later in life. The sleep hormone melatonin also acts as a powerful antioxidant. It will repair damage at the cellular level as long as you get the recommended 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night.
The John Tesh Radio Show. Don't miss this stuff.
You've got a garden and we've got a show for you called You've Got a Garden with your host, Master Gardener Carol Ann Baldwin. Carol Ann answers your questions about your flowers, your veggies, your grass, your trees, even questions about your bugs. And she's only on WOCA, so don't miss Carol Ann Baldwin and You've Got a Garden each Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. right here on WOCA The Source.
Howdy, folks. RL here to invite you to Dairy Queen for a great new meal. Dairy Queen's now serving 3 different 5